So you probably thought you were gonna die when you were falling, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So I fell and I crushed both my legs, and I had spiral fractures up my tibias,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
crushed my wrist, and I was in a body cast for 6 months and a wheelchair for 2 months. And I learned to knit with one hand.
Really?
That was the great outcome of it.
So,
It was
so you
always-
fell 50 feet, but how high was the thing that you fell onto?
Oh, how high? That was 200 feet above the beginning of our
Oh my
climb.
gosh.
And it was a 500-foot ice tongue, a frozen waterfall that was 500 feet tall.
So if you didn't land on that thing, you would have been...
I would have ripped out all of my ice screws, they're called. And I would have because I was ripping them out as I was falling down. Because yeah, they were popping. They were popping out, and that little ledge caught me. And the last ice screw caught me. And I would have landed on top of my friends that were belaying me.
So
And
that
I
would've been even worse.
might have ripped, our belay out and taken them down too, but so.
Alright, so I just left my house, and I am really close. Woo! There it is! Woo! Alright, so I'm here at the Port Townsend Airport today, and I'm doing a slightly different setup today for my interviews. I've got a tripod, like a bigger stationary tripod, and I'm gonna walk up to people and ask them if I can ask them some questions, and if they say yes, then I'll set up the tripod, and then I can kind of have more of a personal conversation with them while the camera will be kind of off to the side, and I think it'll be better, but we'll see. Alright, so I was hoping to find some people kind of sitting alone here at the airport, and unfortunately I didn't find that. However, I did get a cool time lapse, so I'm going to move on to downtown Port Townsend, and we'll see what we can get.
One time I had this really strong dream of climbing a very certain route. It's kind of like a bike rider or a sailor or, kind of an adventure that has an idea of a certain line or a map or a route or a country they want to go to. So as a climber, I saw this one crack, this one line on this 500-foot rock face in Tahquitz, Southern California. It was a stone I grew up on. I grew up on meaning that I'd go there and climb every weekend.
Okay.
So one day after a roped up climb with my brother and a couple other friends, I was the last one to go come back down, and I started climbing up this crack. I wouldn't even have led it ever on a rope. I hadn't ever led it on a rope before, meaning I never climbed it on a rope.
Okay.
It was on-site free solo, which is kind of the most scary and kind of gnarly because you have no idea what's gonna come, what you're gonna run into. And as I was 3/4 of the way up it, I was in this very small crack with just the crack only holding this much of my fingers in it.
Oh my gosh.
Finger over finger over finger, and my feet were spread out on this kind of, this book kind of face. The crack was right inside.
Okay.
Feet were spread out on the sides on nothing, just flat face, just smearing.
Yeah, sweet.
And my hands slipped, my feet slipped. One of my hands slipped and I caught myself hanging on one hand. And I was hanging in the air.
Really? Your feet were hanging?
Yeah. And one hand, on this many fingers, they were locked. And they basically got ripped in the crack.
Oh, really? Yeah,
And
because your whole body
wedged.
was...
Yeah. And my brothers and friends all watched me and saw that. And
imagine how scary that would be
they
to
said
watch.
they almost died watching it.
Yeah, I bet.
Their hearts jumped out of their chest.
Oh my gosh.
And you have to gather your mind together real quickly because it could freak out, at that very instant. And as soon as you freak out, your hands start to sweat, and everything becomes very slippery. When your hand, when the mind and body become scared, you start to sweat, kind of. And
Adrenaline.
climbers have a chalk bag, and a chalk bag is usually hung on the side or the back.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to get to it to dip your hand into a little chalk to take the sweat away.
Yeah. Did you have
So
chalk?
I had chalk. Yeah, I had chalk. That was the one thing I did climb with when I went free soloing.
Yeah.
So I dipped my fingers in it, got my mind back around, squared off, and centered. Pretty quickly you have to make that happen and get your senses about you and finish the last 100 feet of the climb.
That's crazy. So did you finish it?
Yeah, I finished it, and man, yeah,
What did you feel like when you finished it?
Oh, it was, it's like the best feeling ever. Surviving.
Yeah.
Surviving through something that may have easily, killed me.
Do you think that's the most triumphant climb you've ever had? The most intense feeling at the end? Or?
That is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
When I drowned kayaking, that was another time that,
You almost...
yeah, that
Sorry.
Crazy.
that I came up out of the river. I had done another a solo descent on a river that wasn't descended that often, down by Ventura, California.
So you did kayaking too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I had only been kayaking for 2 months, 2 to 3 months,
Okay.
and I decided I wanted to go down this one river that was 45 miles long in the wilderness through the Condor Sanctuary. It was called the Sespe Creek, and you have to wait to get to flood level because there's not enough room in the canyon. If the water's not high enough, your kayak would get stuck between rocks.
Dang.
So you have to let it rain enough up in the higher hills, and then it's moving very quickly. And I asked kayakers and I asked other paddlers around to come down with me, and these guys were experienced. They all knew how to roll really well and do the Eskimo roll, and I had met them at college, and all of them always found an excuse, not to come with me. And I said, on the next rain, I want to go down there and run this river. And I couldn't understand, I knew about the level I was getting into, but not quite the level I was getting into.
Yeah.
So everyone declined and I went solo. And it was a 3-day trip through these canyons. And one morning I woke up, it was very cold on the river. There was frost all over the river. And my hands were a bit cold, and I put my gloves on. And I rolled upside down in the first rapid that I hit on the second morning. And
First one.
yeah, so I was upside down for a little while, and I couldn't roll back up because my kayak was kind of heavier than usual because of all the food and gear I had taken down for this 3-day journey. And I didn't roll back up, and the next thing I remember, I was laying out on the beach and waves lapping up me, and I had woken up from being unconscious, and all of my gear and my kayak was spread out all over down
crazy.
the river. So I had gone unconscious, maybe hit a rock or something, but my body was up hanging on the shore.
That's
And
lucky.
I was still coughing up water
Oh my gosh.
out of my lungs. So
So how do you think it changes you to have a near-death experience like that?
yeah, it changes me. It's brought in more appreciation for every day, every
Yeah.
moment, every precious moment, and every personal interaction I have with people.
Yeah.
It's become more precious.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's become like I'm able to access the preciousness of relationship and the preciousness of this one moment, because the next moment, realizing that it may be, something different the next moment.
Get in any time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's a lot more. It's a lot. I appreciate life a lot greater than I had, earlier.
I bet. Yeah.
And I'm able to be more present for it. My mind's not as scattered.
Yeah.
I'm able to be more present in the moment
That's interesting.
of just being here, and my mind's not someplace else.
I guess because you realize it makes you value it more, so therefore you can focus more on it.
Yeah.
Huh.
Realizing this little moment that you walked up to me is all right, somebody was asking me to say yes to something. Say yes and see what happens.
Interesting.
That's cool. Say yes to this adventure that I want to do.
I know that sounds really stupid and dangerous, but I kind of feel like I want to have some experiences like that, some really intense experiences where you're putting your life at risk, because and you're really close to death. Death is imminent, and if you you could easily die at any second, because I think it makes you, and this is what Misha said, he said it makes you appreciate life a lot more. Like, every moment that you experience and every relationship you have and every interaction you have, you appreciate it so much more. And it's like every day for that guy is an adventure. And I want to live that way, you know? Maybe I don't need to fall 50 feet, you know, down an ice cliff and barely land on a little ridge, you know, that's all that, and the ridge is 200 feet off the ground. Maybe I don't need to do that, but I just want to live more like that guy, you know, like having an adventure every single day. It would be so tragic if I died for some reason, like I got in a car crash or whatever, because there's so much. It's so amazing, you know. My life is so amazing, and to lose it would seem like such a tragedy. But then on the flip side, like, isn't that so much better? Isn't that the perfect, like, shit? Isn't that the perfect life to live, where it would be a tragedy if it ended? You know, like what if it wasn't a tragedy if it ended? Like, wouldn't that be infinitely worse? Wouldn't you rather have a life where you are so thankful for every moment you have, and it would be so sad if it ended? Or maybe you shouldn't be worried about it ending. I don't know.